I always think that looks don't matter. Sometimes they think
You know what? It's not always how it appears. Willkommen, bienvenue, welcome one and all to another live stream. I'm very pleased to have in the studio, as ever, David Chernick, the man with the hat. Oh, that would be me. Gareth Wax of many purple hats. Here to talk about, originally, when we started this series, it was about what grinds David's gears. But today we're talking more about what makes the appearance of things important, and specifically to do with proposals, right?
Specifically proposals. You know, you get asked, oh, can you send me a proposal? And we've been through about whether you should or shouldn't, and when you should, and when they really need it, and all of that kind of stuff. But assuming you have got to the point where you are going to write a proposal, and it's
there are many times where a proposal is necessary, right?
Of course, yeah. At some point, you have to send them a quote. I mean, in its basic terms, you probably have to, or tell them over the phone what it is, right? But usually, if it's a big deal and there's a lot to it, you know, you're going to have to fill in a form or answer some questions, or you know, respond to a tender invitation. Okay, if you're involved in any kind of B2B sales, corporate sales, and you're not selling volume, you're selling, you know, big services, you're going to have to fill these things in. You're going to have to send something off. And some of them, the requirements are pretty strict. We want these questions answered. We want it answered in this way, in this layout, and all of that.
In this font, in this color.
Yeah. Well, look, so in black ink. Cool. You know, sometimes people can be very, very stringent on these things, and they can request that you submit them on a procurement piece of software database. So it sort of removes and strips down any personality or anything like that. But, you know, most of the time you're going to be asked for some kind of document.
Right.
And many years ago, I don't know if it's that I had some time on my hands, or if I don't think it was that. I think it was just I was personally motivated to win a particular deal. I'll tell you who it was for, actually. It's a very long time ago, so I'm not going to say what it was for. But it was for a company called Clark's, you know, the shoe people.
Right.
And so it was probably 20 years ago. And I'd seen loads of proposals before then. I mean, I was involved in a bid for the first lottery consortium contract in the UK. And I remember helping putting together these big documents. And they were a mess, man. I mean, they were difficult to navigate. They just looked so boring to read. And it was very complicated language, full of charts and stuff. It was just a dry, boring thing. And it was going to be sent to a review team at the buying company, this consortium. And, you know, it was just, and they were going to split it up into different parts so different people could review different bits. And, you know, it just was not showcasing what we were really all about. And I kind of learned a lesson from that. And then I'm selling to Clark's, and it was quite a big deal. And, you know, Clark's are based in the UK in a town called Street. And I remember there was only two things. I decided I was going to go and physically see them. It's miles away. I think it's like Somerset, something like that.
Right.
And so I went down there with the techie. And it's basically the whole town is made up of Clark's and a shopping outlet. That's the main employers of the town. And they were really, these people at Clark's were really into their brand, really into their product, into their history. You know, they were just really into it. And they all lived fairly locally to each other. And as we were putting together this tender document, I started getting really into Clark's, you know, the whole thing. And I obviously, the way I do sales, I get very, very into them. You know, I look for very strong connections. We talked a lot about that kind of thing. And so it all went into this proposal. What we ended up with was a document that looked really like a Clark's Shoes strategy planning document. And of course, it won the deal. They were over the moon with it, and it really talked to them. It taught me a lesson that all of the effort that we put into lead generation, all the marketing and the conversation, which is quite often heavily focused on our own brand, that's unimportant when it comes to the proposal. You're already in the door. We're going to make it their brand. And it does a couple of things when you start branding things for the prospect. Firstly, of course, it makes a document that is far more appealing to them. Yeah, because when it's branded for them, they're seeing something that could be their own document.
Right.
For the person selling it, it gets you into their brand, into their personality, right? So when you're talking about it, the very language that you're using, the language that you're using back at your place, when you're talking about how we're going to put their service together, is all about the client. And so this became like a winning formula for every company that I've worked for. And all my clients, you know, we've won multiple $1 million deals with this sort of plan. And it costs some money, it takes some effort to do, but it's well worth it in the end. So that's the sort of the high level. What is it that makes the proposal a beautiful thing, though? That's the question. What can you do in a proposal where they've asked you, you know, 50 questions, send us your last 5 years, you know, financial statements, how are you going to do this? Who's going to be on the account team? Or, you know, there's going to be loads of different sections potentially that they will ask you to. And if they don't ask you those questions, you're going to have to think what questions they really want the answers to. So how do you turn that into a document that looks like and feels like their own strategy, their own plan?
Well, I say that, and this is going to sound controversial, the secret sauce to all this is the covering letter. The thing that can differentiate you, the thing that can make you stand out, if you can engender within that covering letter that you're there not just looking to close down a lucrative deal, but you're there to help, and you want to be seen as a responsible, reliable organ that is to work with the client.
Organ.
That's the correct word for an.
I don't think I've choked on this show before.
Well, that's probably down to your own personal life, my friend.
Yeah, like that covering letter is very important. I do. We've been here before, mate, where you've said that it's all down to this one thing. It's not all down to one thing, but that is.
You're saying that this form or whatever this content is very restrictive. Therefore, you can only express it really with facts. You've got no personality in there. There's
plenty of places where you can put personality in. And you're absolutely right to focus in on that executive summary, that covering letter. Super, super important. Yeah, but it's like the blurb at the beginning of the book, you know, and you're going to read that beginning.
Yes, the forward, isn't it? It's the bit that can colour a way someone receives the information you're providing, and there's very much more cut and dried.
It's super important. It's the one part that everybody will read, and quite often when they get the proposal, and this isn't a proposal, this is a book a mate of mine wrote. In fact, you might like it. It's purple. It's one about annual leave. Donna Obsfeld, DOHR, great HR. Writes them a lot. But what people tend to do when they pick up a proposal is that they will read that first bit, and then do you know what they're going to do afterwards? If it's one person reading the whole thing, where are they going to scoot to? They're going to go straight to the pricing page.
To the financials. Correct.
They're going to go straight to the end. They'll read that first executive summary. It's a little bit like an email. It's like everything that we send. Okay, you know, pro tip: when you're writing an email, concentrate on the first line and whatever hangs around the signature. So same thing. So it's going to be the executive summary and then the financials, the pricing. Okay. So those are really, really important areas to focus a lot of attention on. Your pricing is not just a list of numbers. Yeah, we need to there be talking about actually what the value to them is. What is it that by having these services at that price and that time frame is going to do for you? This will be a conversation I hope that you would have already had, but we need to be spelling that stuff out, and we can spell it out, yes, using words, which are really important and undervalued themselves, but also pictorially, using colors, using font sizes, really spelling it out to them. And the same goes for the rest of the document. But that executive summary, you're absolutely right. That is where we need to, in a couple of paragraphs, please make it short. And, you know, just to really sort of hone in on what the value is and put the person who signs that executive summary, that covering letter, is the boss, the person whose neck is on the block for this, the person who years down the line, when you say, who did you buy that stuff off that's transformed your business? Oh man, it was Nick over at Celltech. It was David over at Treacle. Yeah, you're that person's name. Yeah, that might be your CEO. And they've got to know all about this proposal. They've got to want it. They've got to know. They've got to know the client. They need to have met them. Part of the conversation that they had, they need to go in there. I send my clients, I'm a bit obsessive, as you know. I send my clients in there and they want to, you know, wheelbarrow out their chief executive to go and meet their chief executive over a dinner or something. Write something down. Do not come back from that dinner without a few notes of stuff in their words. And then that is your executive summary. But the whole production of a proposal like this needs to really showcase your expertise. In fact, the best ones are the ones where just in writing it is a transformative experience for your business. It takes your business up to a higher level. You learn about yourself, you learn about your business just in writing this proposal. You know, oh, they've asked us how we are going to deliver 1,000 of these gadgets at the, you know, with these enhancements, and well, how are we actually going to deliver? I know we've got how we would normally do it, but is that the optimized way? Yeah, so it really is, it's the ultimate in peer review, where you have to verbalize and put down on paper and commit how you're going to deliver something. Yeah, so use that as an opportunity to be tested and to improve your processes as you're doing it. And then in the presentation of the thing, and I talked about branding. Branding is not just looks and feel and color and logos, but, you know, you can look on their websites. It's very easy to get a view of other people's branding these days. Go on their websites, look for their colors. What fonts are they using? You can find out, you can see very, very easily. I mean, if anybody doesn't know how to do this and they want to find out, pick up the phone to probably either of us and we'll tell you how to do it. But you can go to a website and see what fonts they're using, get a high quality version of their logo, use their colors, their fonts. If they're using particular types of pictures, use their pictures. If they represent data using a particular sort of graphic, use their graphics. Intertwine some of your own as well, of course. Because really what you're talking about here is, you know, a wedding. There's a hell of a lot of stuff that you can do. And be precious about every pixel you put as the answer to a question and on a page. No fluff. Absolutely no fluff. The amount of fluff that is in these proposals is insane. What do we mean by fluff? Tell them, Gareth. What do we mean by fluff?
Fluff is stuff that doesn't say anything. Fluff is the verbal or written equivalent of expanding foam. It literally is there to fill the gaps between one bit of intelligent commentary and the next.
Yeah.
And it's all usually, dare I say, and I think what the MP version of it, the House of Commons version is called filibustering, where you basically you just blather on about nonsense.
Yeah, man. Corporate gobbledygook.
Yes.
Anything's corporate gobbledygook. It just has to be out.
It's the problem. We are in an age where the amount of time allocated to reading through a proposal is reducing, not increasing. They want to know what it is you can do for them, whether or not it's going to fit within their own schedules and their own desires, and also whether it, of course, it makes economic sense. And they're not going on feeling or some sort of weird meandering description of something. They want you to get to the flipping point. So I advise you to do exactly that.
That doesn't mean you can't embellish it with
but just
relevant,
because they say
stuff.
Just so they say maximum 500 words for this section doesn't mean you need 500 words on how to clean a toilet effectively. It get to the point. If you feel you need one thing I would do though is quote sources. So for instance, if you're going to make a claim that about something that the average rate of this or typically quote the sources, because that then makes you look like you've done some research.
Right. So that point actually reminds me of another very, very important element, which is that a lot of proposals are absolutely filled with adjectives. We're excellent at such and such. The supreme, I've seen. I mean, just all sorts of things, and they are
abound. Yeah, absolutely everywhere. It's like they could be no better than us.
So scratch those out unless you have got something to back up that claim. Don't use a word like supreme or excellent or the best unless you are the best. And if you are the best, show that you're the best by giving that ranking that was independently or that you have created a ranking that. We are the best, and here's the reasons why. Because of that and that, and that means that if you score those things, it puts us at the top of the tree.
I have a final bugbear, a final irritation I find with these type of documents. People often put in all their many awards that they've won, and what I would say is, if those awards were peer given and you didn't pay money towards receiving them, then they're valid. But if you paid money towards receiving them, it takes a full 10 minutes of searching on Google to work that fact out.
It depends. I think it can depend. It depends on how educated your buyer is, your prospect is. And we've talked before about how actually our preference is for educated buyers. In the end, we do much better if our clients are educated and know what they're doing.
Absolutely. And also for the longevity of the deal. You want a deal ideally not to be a one-off. Nobody wants a one-off deal. You want them to come back to you and either buy more.
You become more profitable over time, typically.
Yeah. So the more educated they are, the easier that process will be.
Yeah. I mean, we could do a show about how you can buy awards. I've been sat on awards, but I've sat on awards panels, industry awards panels.
Well, that's great. Did they have to pay money towards receiving those awards?
The thing is you have to pay a fee, which pays for the assessment of the award, right? So you're not paying.
I still find that doubtful. I still find that.
If you're a member of a professional body that is that gives prizes for things, right? You have your annual industry Oscars. Then you will have a professional panel, panel made up of people who incur expenses in order to judge all of the entries.
I bet you were expensive.
But you're submitting your entry. So in fact, that's a proposal as well. You're submitting an entry. That's right. They can be very influenced by how the proposal looks, how they answer the questions.
All right. Well, it's that time again, David. Summarize for us, will you?
Okay. So looks matter, feel matters. Okay. But it's not looks in just beautifying things. What makes a proposal beautiful is whether the document that you submit feels to the recipient like it is their own document, their own strategy, their own plan. And you can do all sorts of things with the language, to be using their language, to be using their look and feel, their sorts of outline, to make sure that you make it easy for people to understand, which includes, as Gareth pointed out, a wonderful executive summary or covering letter from the person, signed by the person whose neck is on the block for delivering that stuff, spelling out exactly what's going to be in it for you.
Please, can I? One other thing is try and avoid. Well, it's one last thing. try the one thing that will irritate the hell out of the recipient of this is if they ask questions that need to be filled in the proposal and you don't answer those questions. You answer similar questions or questions that haven't actually been asked. Answer the damn questions. I mean, you could probably add to them and embroider them, but answer the damn question. That's the important thing.
Yeah, there's a whole load of things, but I think we've given the main. I think those are the main
absolutely.
things.
It should give you lots.
It's not bad in 20 minutes.
Take a pause when you're next filling in a proposal and think to yourself, is this, are we hitting the mark? If you look back on this video and there are some golden nuggets there from David and a couple from myself. Once again, thank you so much, David, for taking part in this and helping the rest of the world. He's never going to do it. Rest of the world, come on. No, just keep up and make sure that when they're putting out information, it strikes the mark and actually helps people. Do the heart thing. There we go. There we go. So, guys, I wish you well, and I hope you have a successful week. What's left of it, this being Hump Day, of course. But just remember, you just gotta keep your feet in the ground, but keep reaching for the stars. Thanks a lot, David. Until next week, goodbye, all, and great mental health.